Hi, welcome back to my garden. Filming a little later in the day, Friday, but it's now or never. We're coming up to the last weekend of the school holidays, our mid-year break here in Brazil, which means a few things really. The first is that tomorrow will be spent with all the little children in the family splashing around in our pool. Promises to be a wonderful day, but not a day to make a film. So, as I say, now or never. It also means that if this video has an unexpected musical backdrop, it's because, well, the weekend festivities have started for someone else, somewhere else. Never mind. Onwards and upwards. Now, I wasn't sure what I was going to talk about this week, but in my post-lunch, pre-nap break, I was scrolling through YouTube and I came across a very interesting video essay. Can't remember the name of the chap. Never seen it before. Japanese, American perhaps. He had an accent, so he's certainly Japanese, but whether he lives in America or just has fantastic English, anyway, I don't know. But my first guess would be that perhaps he's a student over there, something like that. And he was talking about the rise and fall of Japan's economic power. And that in itself is kind of what drew me into the video, but it's certainly not of enough interest around the normal, more philosophical angle that I take in these videos. So that's not why I'm sharing it, but he reached some very interesting conclusions. It seems that after the seemingly endless economic boom as Japan took over the world in the 60s and 70s with extraordinary productivity, technological innovation and so forth. The good times were rolling. Everyone was working hard, ambitious and striving for more and more. National growth rates of typically 10%. It seemed like it would never end, but as is always the case with economic stories, end it does. And Japan in the late 80s came crashing down. The bubble burst. Some astonishing sort of statistics, figures that this videographer gave. One of them was that at one point, I watched it after lunch, so of course I can't remember. But there were these amazing figures, something like the real estate in Japan was valued at 4 times the total value of the entire United States of America. There was something like that. It was ridiculous, but kind of grabbed my attention, if not lodged itself in my memory. At any rate, Japan had this amazing boom and then bust. Time of stagnation and recession. Really most unfortunate. But Japan being Japan, they responded in an interesting way. And this chap was speaking about how a Japanese economist had written a book about the subject. And it seems that that one of the conclusions that he reached was that people in Japan simply stopped wanting things. They had abandoned desire. And for late 20th century and 21st century capitalism, this is a disaster. The whole system is predicated on people wanting more and more things, ever more elaborate, expensive acquisitions, consuming. And for economic reasons, this just came tumbling down. People gave up on that, especially the young people in Japan. They gave up on all desires. It seems from perhaps our videographer friend is painting a gloomier picture than it really is, but perhaps not. It wasn't just the desire for stuff, it was just desire in general. People sought simplicity, security. They no longer worked longer hours, grinding themselves into the dust to achieve a promotion. And even relationships, people stopped seeking more. Now, it perhaps is a leap to suggest this is the sole reason for the appalling state of Japanese demographics. It's an aging population. There are many other reasons for that, but young people just don't want to start families anymore. He painted a very bleak picture, but then he sort of wound back and said that actually, though, if you look at Oriental philosophy, maybe it's not such a bad thing. And again, not having adequately researched and rehearsed this video, just simply watching a video after lunch and then thinking, I'm going to remember it. Well, of course that hasn't worked. But the Buddha quote is something like, I wish I could remember it, man's desire is the source of all his sorrow. And essentially, by abandoning desire, by stopping wanting things, it is our only way of eliminating suffering. And it's a very complex, deep idea. But there's a lot to it. I remember in that fantastic book, which I've spoken about on many occasions, Happiness Equation, Formula for Happiness, I can't remember the title. Mo Gaudat, the Egyptian ex-CEO of Google X. But he begins with that, a very common sort of idea that happiness is reality minus expectations. And so if we want to have that inner peace, one approach is to eliminate all expectations. But then our narrator took a different philosophical turn. Actually, he moved to ancient Greece. And first he spoke about Socrates going to the marketplace and saying, look at all this incredible stuff that I don't want, or that I'm not going to buy. Again, I can't remember the beautiful, pithy quote, but Socrates marveling at this abundance, proliferation of things to buy, but really, why? Why do we want to buy this stuff? That's classic meme. We're working to earn money to buy stuff that we don't need to impress people that we don't like. And the video moved on in this direction. Another classic story, a meeting, perhaps allegorical, did it really happen, who knows, but between Alexander the Great and Diogenes the Cynic, a famous ancient Greek philosopher who supposedly lived in a barrel and abandoned possessions. One day, apparently saw a little boy drinking from a fountain. And he noticed the boy was drinking by cupping his hands. So at that point, Diogenes abandoned one of his very last possessions, a silver drinking bowl. Anyhow, one day Alexander the Great saw Diogenes sitting on the steps, enjoying the sun, and he came up to him. He'd heard fame of Diogenes had spread all over the ancient world. And he came up to him and said, I've heard great things about you. I am an immensely powerful man. And indeed, Alexander the Great was nothing if not powerful. And it was power driven by extraordinary ambition, wanting, one might argue, the whole world, and he sort of got it. But he went up to Diogenes, the Cynic, and said, I can give you anything. Please, just ask. And Diogenes looked up from his reclining position and said, well, actually, there's something you could do to help that I would love greatly. I'd greatly appreciate. Alexander the Great said, tell me whatever it is. I will do it for you. And he said, well, you're blocking my sun. Could you just move a little to one side? It's a lovely story. Perhaps you've heard it before. You may well have. It is. I hadn't, but I'd sort of forgotten. And, the videographer was suggesting how these seem to argue that, as is so often the case, there was a spectrum of wants. That on one side we have the extraordinary ambition and desire of an Alexander the Great, and on the other hand we have the polar opposite, someone who had freed himself entirely of want and desire, Diogenes. But the conclusion reached in the video was that neither of these are necessarily right or wrong. And apparently Alexander the Great had said something along the lines of, if I wasn't Alexander the Great, then I would want to be Diogenes. And people have sort of misinterpreted, or perhaps not surprisingly, if you've possibly, I can't remember, misquoted. But the essential idea in the quote was that it wasn't so much that he was envious, as some people suggested, of a Diogenes, but that he could no more be Diogenes than Diogenes could be Alexander the Great. We are who we are. We have an inherent nature. And that's interesting. And so the conclusion reached in the video was that really what we need is not to be free of desire or to have extraordinary ambition, but just, first of all, to know ourselves and know ourselves well. to understand what we actually do want. And then we need to have the wisdom to find the path, the right path towards that, and the courage to take it. And it was a great video. I mean, perhaps I will attach it below, and then you can see if how badly I've mangled what was a very interesting discussion, or perhaps not. I mean, my video is a little bit shorter, even though you might be saying, Neil, it's nearly 16 minutes. But this was a much longer, not much, 20-something minutes. So there we are. Those are my thoughts coming to the end of the mid-year school holidays here in Brazil. And I'd love to hear if that resonated with you. Let me know in the comments below, he asks somewhat desperately. Otherwise, I do hope your lives are filled with joy, and until next week, from a sunny, albeit the waning late afternoon sun, from a sunny Brazil, ciao.